Hey there guys, so in this video we're going to be going over the top of the Cosmic class, and again I just kind of want to go over like what I think the Cosmic class is meant to bring. And for a while, so Cosmic has always been reliant on two main things, which is being able to have buffs and debuffs. Most of their champions require both, some only require one. Cosmic's biggest thing has always been their buffs, that's where they get a lot of their damage, but most of them have a lot of debuffs that they also apply to increase their damage. So what Cosmics are usually meant to bring to a roster is kind of about burst fighting. They're not necessarily, some of them aren't necessarily the best for like super oddly specific, super hard content, but you're going through CAV-EQ, you just slap Cosmic Ghost Rider or Hercules on, and you're just through the quest really fast. They've always been good at very casual stuff. Some of them can cover a lot of ground with their utilities that they have. Stuff like Hercules over here, right, where he has his immortality on his dupe, he has a miss counter, right, he can just cover a lot of stuff on his base. And that also brings us right into who is number one on my list. He's kind of number one probably on most people's list at this point. I think, do other Cosmics have higher damage? Probably yes. But most also don't have a very effective and easy access to immortality like Hercules does, which you can extend it to about a minute of immortality if you play hyper aggressive, which are also unblockable, which makes it very easy to. So that's always nice. You get combat power rate from his SIG, which helps a lot, as a lot of his damage comes from special attacks with gaining his buffs. Even without buffs though, his feats of strength just, they give a lot of extra damage with in the red numbers, where even if you don't have your buffs going, they hit really hard. And then when you have your precisions and you have your cruelties going, and you're critting every single hit, and all your crits have, 2600 extra crit damage, you gain just a lot of damage. His damage goes off the charts. He has a fair bit of utility. He has a couple really nice synergies. He works very well with suicides. Just a very good champion. So number two is probably where I'll get a lot of flack, if I'm being honest. And I was just trying to think about like who's number two, who's number three, and stuff like that. A couple of them, after Hercules, you can really change a lot of them around. I just have been really enjoying Cosmic Ghost Rider for the past year now, basically, since the feature that he was in. I got him on like the first or second day of it, so probably a little bit biased there, but I've never been the biggest fan of some of the other champions, but like Cosmic Ghost Rider I've always really enjoyed since I've had him, I've really enjoyed his super bursty playstyle, getting up to SP2, launching it, nuking down fights. I used him for a Path of Abyss. It wasn't the best choice to bring him because I forgot about an ability, but I used him for other fights that weren't actually the ones I brought him for, and his damage is just so insane for that type of stuff. In casual content, his damage is crazy. He has more utility than people give him credit for, especially with his dupe, where he can nullify and remove buffs. You have double immunities, you have tons of armor breaks, tons of buffs. He can easily do buffed up or distract, which isn't like the biggest thing, but it helps. His mediums are both energy, so he bypasses a couple things with that. His specials are non-contact, so he works for stuff like pole. He just has a lot of like easy built-in utility that you don't have to like reach for. It's nothing crazy you have to do, you just kind of go in, smash a fight out. Damage is a very strong utility in this game, if we're being honest. You could use a champion with a very niche utility set, or, right, like Venom the Duck, you could use his toxic armors and like cheese and armor fight, or use Cosmic Ghost Rider, remove all the armor up buffs and kill in a single SP2, instead of using a weird finicky champion. So that's kind of where Cosmic Ghost Rider comes in. Third, I had Hyperion, who you could easily argue for him to be second. Maybe some people might put him lower, but I've used my Hyperion. I think he was my first rank 5. I've used him literally since Act 6, since like I really came back to this game. As I said, it's like my first or second rank 5, I think. Not too long of a kit, but tons of furies. 40% chance isn't like low, and it's a very strong fury. It's a bit over half of his base attack rating. The incinerates on his special 1 have so much utility packed in because SP1 gives very little power to the opponent, and with his dupe and the power gain buffs, you can cycle an SP1 every power gain buff, and it takes like over 5 SP1s, I think, for them to get a single bar of power, so you're just able to spam that before they can do anything. It also works for some fights like Electro and stuff because all the beams are non-contact, so you don't take damage back. The SP2 hits very hard and has a stun and armor break if you need either of those. The special attack 3 gives you your cosmic charges. You have healing. Before CORVUS, he was one of the best AQ champions, and I still think he is, with buffs, debuffs, healing, high damage, good block proficiency, energy resistance, just a lot packed into a very simple kit. He's one of those few champions that I mentioned from the start, like Archangel, that have been at the top of the game since like 2016, I think, is his release. So he's a very, very good champion who's lasted the test of time. Next is another one who's lasted the test of time, but I feel he's lost a little bit of his relevance, but I actually feel that little bit of relevance lost kind of will start to highlight other places he's good. He just doesn't fit my account too well currently. That's just about it. Even though I just pulled the 6-star, he still just doesn't fit my account too well at the moment. I never run suicides, so he's not the best for me, but CORVUS GLAIVE will always be CORVUS GLAIVE. If you're killing within those 20 hits, he's an absolute beast. Every hit crits except for his light attack, which actually gives utility because you can do light backdraft intercepts only, and it makes it so you never use a crit charge, so you can cycle SP2 permanently if you really wanted to. But right, everyone knows about CORVUS. You have immortality, so you can cheese some maps of AQ, but they're going to be removing that. But I think that will show how this dupe is better in other ways. You'll still live on 1% health as long as you kill the fight. You can't time out anymore, but let's say you just like have a bleed node or a poison node, or not a bleed node, a poison node or something like that. All you're doing is you're just going to live on 1% health, just don't block. It's the same strategy, just no timing out. But like if you're using CORVUS, you shouldn't have to time out. His damage is super good. And if you have to time out with CORVUS, you should be using a better counter, in my opinion, anyway. Right, so it's like, you'll be able to still live on 1% health. He still is a great suicide champion. And now in War, he'll even get probably more highlights because people won't have him auto-locked both of them in AQ. You can use him in War, use a Power Start 1 boost and a Cosmic boost, and every fight is pretty easy, just cycling SP2s. And so next up on the list is going to be Captain Marvel movie. So she, of course, is very, very good. She's kind of been getting less hype around her. I have to search for her down here because I don't have her as a 5 or a 6-star yet, which is just kind of silly at this point in the game. But still. So her dupe is the indestructible buff, which is obviously very, very valuable. She's now the 3rd champ in the Cosmic class with a way to cheat death. They have a few champions with it, but the 3 on here are obviously very good at it. Right, Binary Ignition, super easy to get, and then you just don't take any damage. And obviously everyone knows about, right, that just like cheesing stuff with her, just taking no damage over times. Plus you have the Unstoppable on Synergy, so you can use her for Can't Stop, Won't Stop, or while you're not taking any damage, just rush in, and then you can't be hit because you're unstoppable, you don't take any damage, so it's just like, you just don't take anything back. It's really nice. Her damage is obviously a massive part of her. Right as you get her ramped up, her damage just explodes. Some people don't like the blocking, but right, it's a quarter. 1 Fury is about a quarter of her attack value, so it's a very big, very chunky Fury, and you get 5 of them going. You're doing massive damage. You have those pretty decent armor breaks, which also let you have secondary damage in red, which is always a nice thing to have. It just adds more damage to a champion that's meant to be bursty. And then her SP2 obviously just absolutely nukes champions down. Her SP3 actually has some nice utility with keeping her charges going. But that'll just about do it for Captain Marvel, just an obviously amazing burst champion. Next up on the list, if you didn't see it, is going to be Venompool. I know I have Venom at R3 and Venompool at R2, but I'm kind of thinking at this point Venompool is probably better than Venom. You know, if you're doing like a war fight that's really, really short and you need to counter a Spider-Man champion, Venom is probably still better. But Venompool, it's not like he has bad buffs. Venom has, you know, armor up, physical resistance, and cruelty, and you don't really want any of those too often. And then with Venompool, you don't really have any bad buffs like that. So you don't have to worry about like trying to change your buffs often. And you can still do that with Venompool to like heavy to get up your Clintar buff to counter Spider-Man champions. He has the Sig ability, which lets you almost pick who you're going to get. It doesn't happen every single time, but it happens pretty regularly. And then you also have the Symbiote Supreme synergy. You're probably not bringing both Venom and Venompool, which lets you start with a buff active, which is really nice. So you can select a buff, and it's very likely just to have it from the start of the fight, just like Venom. So that's really nice. His cooking meter works well. All of his stuff just works together very simple, very well. He has a lot of buffs. They're all good buffs. He doesn't have, you know, a physical resist buff or anything like that. He has power gain, crit chance, damage, burst damage, furies, something that increases his chance for, or not chance, the potency of furies, which you can actually increase that buff's potency, so I kind of want to test that and see how that works out. Plus you have Iceman synergy, which gives you ice armor, so he can also counter a Havoc, just like you can use Venom to counter a Havoc. And it also makes him stun immune and damage capped. So he has really good buffs. He has a couple really good synergies that aren't required, but offer some very interesting utilities in ice armor and starting with an extra buff. I just think he's super solid. His SP1 has the Nullify. His SP2 doubles the buffs you have if you're able to finish your dance. Just absolutely insane the amount of stuff he can pull off. I think people are starting to finally recognize what he can do. If you haven't seen what he can do against a boss like the Nimrods in map 8 and stuff, it's pretty crazy the damage he can put up. Next up, pardon me there, next up is the kind of like, you know, just shout out type champions. So Silver Surfer is a champion that I like a lot. He's been kind of underrated for since his release, to be honest. Right? He has those triple pseudo immunities, he has buffs, debuffs, fairly good damage, obviously a prestige champion, so that always is nice. Next up, you have, I don't actually have him at this star rating, but I saw him there, you have Odin, who, if you haven't seen what he can do against a champion like Abyss champions with his SP2, he has some insane damage on his SP2 really. It's just burst damage, it's really fun. A lot of people really like him now, and I think it would be amiss if I didn't mention King Groot in his buff that came out, I think, with Venompool, where he has a lot of the same stuff, right? Can't be like power drained and stuff by Tex. He has a lot of fury, a lot of armor breaks that you can stack. His poisons, if you have furies, are thick. His regen is so massive. It's almost impossible to die with him if you're playing him right. His SP3 heals for a ton. He has some nice synergies with like crossbones and stuff. Super solid champion, super fun. So yeah, that'll just about wrap up this list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, it's just a list. It's nothing like too serious, but these are just the way I view them. You can probably throw a lot of flack at me for like kind of switching like Corvus and CGR. That's just a bit of a personal taste one for me. I just, as I said, don't run Corvus often, so that's mainly where that comes from. But he's still an amazing champion. He's probably better than CGR for a lot of stuff, but I just really like him. Cosmic has finally become a deeper class. They were very bad for a while, but that's basically it for this one. So I hope you guys have a good one. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Keep a lookout for more stuff coming very, very soon, and I'll be seeing you guys soon. Bye.